The place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today's Tuesday, February 25, 2025, 22525, and this is episode 1009 of Living Free in Tennessee. And it's a Tuesday show, so it's the Living Free podcast where we explore people's journey from where they started in life in a programmed world to deprogramming themselves, decoupling from the system, and building freedom into their lives to have what they choose rather than what's been chosen for them. I'm excited today to be welcoming Joshua Hale onto the show. We'll get to that in a minute. Before we jump into that, I do want to thank two sponsors. Our first sponsor of today is somebody who helps you decouple from the matrix, and that is Above Phone. Above Phone creates a device that allows you to take better control of your data and also your privacy. And if you heard a dog bark in the background, guys, apparently my dog got all mad about something. So I'm actually gonna take a pause here. So we're gonna do a 5-second pause. Alrighty, Above Phone helps you take control of your digital privacy and keep your data where it should be, which is really important as things escalate on the technological side and some of those scams become even more eloquent. I got a great one in my inbox today. We'll talk about that later. Go to abovephone.com, and there's a link in the show notes if you want them to know I sent you, but that's okay if you don't. Either way, you can use the coupon code LiveFreeTN for $50 off any device there. Our second sponsor of today's show makes delicious coffee. HollerRoast.com. That's right. At Holler Roast, we roast everything to order, handcrafted to your mailbox. Check that out at HollerRoast.com. And with that, I'm going to not waste any time, bring Joshua in and say, hey, Joshua, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nicole, for having me on. I've been really looking forward to sharing some holistic AI practices with your audience, and a longtime fan. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's really fun how the word holistic came out there because we talk about building a holistic life on the Living Free podcast. And you've done just that. So let's go way back in time before you had opted out of the matrix. Let's paint a picture of how your life was before you realized that freedom is a choice and started making steps to change it.
Sure thing. I'll go way back and start off with I was raised in a religious household. When I hit 16, I rebelled against that, and then experienced kind of the pendulum swinging too far to the other side. I got tossed in the world of partying and drugs, and that's how I found my new, community was through the party. And if you smoked weed, I smoked weed, we're best friends mentality. And that basically explained my 20s. I became a DJ, and that was my whole life and culture. But through that whole process, I developed a bunch of bad habits, and I never graduated high school. And so I had this mental prison of I was never going to I would never be able to become very successcul. I just accepted that.
Did you think the world was stacked against you, or the deck was stacked against you and you couldn't get ahead?
Absolutely. I grew up on government cheese. And so I had all of these mental programs running through my mind that, I didn't have money. I was just going from part-time work to part-time work, working in movie theaters, and then got in the restaurant industry. And then I didn't know how I was going to get out of that restaurant and I call it slave wage, a trap that I was in, because there was no path to jump out of that. So going through all that stuff, I first realized I had to, get rid of these addictive bad habits out of my life to even give myself a chance. I was, addicted to opiates for 10 years. And I went really far down the addiction toilet bowl, you could say. And from there, learned about meditation, started to like get my feet underneath me, and figuring out how to connect with myself. And from there, being able to start addressing these addiction patterns. I was able to quit doing opiates when I was 33. This is when all this happened. Quit doing opiates, and then quit doing hard liquor, and then quit doing marijuana, and then finally quit smoking cigarettes, all in about 2 years' time, that I was able to like unravel all that. And it was at that point where I finally like had a clear enough head to realize I had the emotional intelligence of a 16-year-old when I started doing drugs. I had the, mental capabilities of a 16-year-old. And I was really lacking in life skills and an understanding of how the world worked. So I realized that once I was sober, because I was forced to face this stuff. And I just kind of hit it in fifth gear to continue to self-develop, to be able to fix all these missing aspects and atrophied aspects of myself.
Okay, so what made you decide I'm going to actually deal with all my addictions? Let's start there.
Repeated chaos year after year. And, it's easy to blame everybody except for yourself when you're in it, because the system is stacked against you. It is an unfair system. And especially with these, simple mind viruses that are put into your head from public school and, and from society as a whole. It's just this like fake system that, they tell you to go to school and get a degree and work hard, and everything is going to work out all right, when that is not the case. And I finally realized that me dropping out of school when I was a sophomore in high school ended up being a good thing. Upon being sober, realized I had unlimited potential to learn. And from that point on, I was able to just start filling in the blanks and start catching up.
Okay, so what did that look like? So when you were like, well, crap, yeah, the deck is stacked against me. Now I'm sober and I can opt out of this. What did you start doing to build your emotional maturity, to increase your intellect, and all of those things that require you to be how you are today?
Started off with affirmations. I was just looking for ways to deprogram the negative self-talk in my head. And because I was a DJ, I knew how to make mixtapes and had audio experience. And so I developed what ended up being my first business was I Emit Affirmations, where I was making a custom affirmation track using my own voice, choosing positive, affirmations I wanted to have more in my life. And I made a track to where it was, the first half was above ear level, and then the second half was below ear level. And so I was programming myself with myself. And then that's when I really started to see like, being aware of these negative self-talks when they happen, realizing it's not me, it's some sort of program that was installed there. And then being able to, through repetition, being able to like get those voices to start thinking positively instead of negatively.
So some people who are new to my podcast are going to think this is fake. You can't just start telling yourself the story you want to live and build that. Like, what would you say to that objection?
Well, saying you can't is already putting an obstacle in your way. So believing you can, you might not get to that perfect thing that you're like visualizing or wanting to achieve, but you're going to start making steps in that direction. So coupling, affirmations with taking action in your life was a recipe that I saw, started shifting things around, where before, like I said, my life was full of chaos. Everybody in my life, because of that, like, hey, buddy, you smoke weed? I had no boundaries. I had no expectations of what it took to be a friend of mine. And so I was surrounding myself with like really poor quality people that had their own drama, their own addictions. And that was just continuously cycling around in my environment. And so I really had to clean myself up to realize like, oh, I'm not in good company. And it was really shocking to see, my 1,500 friends on Facebook, how I couldn't relate to any of them anymore because, me and my wife, my now wife, we both got sober together. And so we became extremely isolated. This was isolation before it was cool. And we couldn't find anybody to relate with. We were kind of a little bit ahead of the curve. This is like 2012. So we were able to then like remove the excess chaos and drama out of our lives. So we're just dealing with our own crap. And
go ahead. Was there an answer?
Well, and so at that point, like at least simplified the amount of, garbage that was flying around so that we could take accountability for it. Like I said, using affirmations, pointing us in a better direction of where we wanted to head, which then started to get baby steps in the right direction. And one more aspect to this, I was dating my wife. I met my wife at Burning Man then we started dating. We both got sober together. And there was a misconception that one of my friends says, like, I'm really glad you found a good girl to help you get sober, man. I was like, well, she didn't get me sober. Like, I did this for myself. And if you do this for anybody else, it's not going to stick. So that was a major lesson, I had to go through. And because if she breaks up with me, then it's really easy to fall back into that pit that you're in. So, but her parents, she grew up like in on a farm in the middle of in a small town. And so we started going up to her parents' house. And for the first time, imagine DJ lived in downtown Seattle, had crazy hair, going out to a farm and starting to do hard work on the farm, painting the barn, cleaning up piles in the garden. That was I called it, DJ rehab, where I was experiencing like the benefit of hard work, focusing on a task for a long time and just letting my mind like unwind. And we were going up there like every 2 weeks, driving up, 2 hours and then staying the weekend with them. And that gave me contrast in my life to realize I want more of that, less chaotic and like high highs and extreme high lows that I was experiencing in the previous decade.
Yeah, it's funny how telling yourself that you can be successful, asking yourself, how can I be successful, does not in and of itself make you successful. But it programs your brain to start thinking in that direction, and then you'll see more opportunities that were there all the time. But if you tell yourself there's a boundary, then the boundary's there. I've got a food forest that was put in a couple years ago, and there's this one apple tree that has been a sorry apple tree the whole time. And I had Carrie Brown out here, who's from Strong Roots Resources, and we were just looking at the trees, and I'm like, yeah, that one's just like hopeless. I basically was like, that one's not doing well. It's gonna die. And he's like, well, it's definitely gonna die if you talk to it that way, Nicole. Like, start talking to it better. And like my whole food forest got nailed. So I've never been nailed by cicadas, but I've been through a couple cicada blooms. Apparently this year, the cicadas ate into the cadmium level, and it actually almost killed a lot of trees. But I was able to go through, trim off the damaged parts. I used lactobacillus in a spray with some other things and some wood vinegar to keep that from further degrading. And when he said that, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm actually sentencing this tree to death by telling it it's going to die. So it's gotten a good hard trim, and it has an opportunity to show me its stuff this year. So we'll see how that goes. And then if it fails this year too, it's actually going to die because I'm going to rip it out or replace it. Because that's the other thing, right? In your life, when you start thinking about things positively, programming yourself to take advantage of the opportunities, then what you'll find is there are people and things in your life that don't serve you. They hold you back. Some of them will actively try to tear you back. And the only person who can take out the trash in that situation is you. And it can be really hard because you could be very emotionally invested in the thing. Like one of the hardest struggles I see in my friends who've quit drinking is that their emotional connection with themselves at a party with a drink in their hand is the guy who's all the fun, or girl who's all the fun with the alcohol. And that's part of the image. And they have to let go of that. And that's a lot harder than you realize. Like, you've built this is who I am. now I got to let go of who I am.
Yeah, I totally went through that process. And, I smoked cigarettes, and cigarettes were an excellent societal coping mechanism, right? Whenever I got into an awkward situation, hey, let's go out for a cigarette. Okay, I'm going to go outside and just like eject out of it, right? So when I was stopped smoking cigarettes, wasn't drinking anymore, going into social situations, I realized, I was extremely underdeveloped in social skills. And so, but being sober, you just have to face it and move your way through it. And I came across a book like The Art of Small Talk, where previously I thought small talk was the dumbest thing. Like, why would I want to talk about the weather with this stranger? That book described it as, you got to enter into the shallow end of the pool to get to the deeper conversations. And understanding how small talk is creates patterns to where you can recognize, oh, you grew up in that town. I knew a friend that grew up in that town. And it opens up doorways for more conversations to take place. And our brains are pattern recognition machines. If we walk into a room, it's going to recognize patterns that we have programmed into it. If you walk into a room and then all of a sudden everybody stops talking, if you have negative self-talk, you're like, oh my gosh, what, or were they just talking about me? Yeah. You get super self-conscious. But I've programmed my brain to walk into if I walk into a room, everybody stops talking, I will assume the best until I have data to know otherwise. And that completely changes what chemicals are reacting in my body. I will stay calm, not stressed out. I'll be able to, ease into the room and, spark up that small talk, and then realize, it was just, by chance, everybody just happened to stop talking. Like it wasn't even a big deal.
Or they're like, wow, that leather jacket's really cool.
Yeah. Or they were talking positively.
Totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, so those affirmations that they don't work on themselves, but they are a tool to help with the reprogramming that was I desperately needed.
Okay, cool. So as you started changing, I understand that you transitioned out of city living into country living. Look, explain that little transition to me. Like, how did that work?
Yeah, well, I lived downtown Seattle pretty much for my 20s. And so I didn't even have a car. I went like a whole year without even leaving downtown one year, just because it was such this like micro ecosystem that sucked me in. And, living in the concrete jungle, it was fun in my 20s. Don't get me wrong. But by the time I hit my 30s, I was getting tired of the same and just kind of purposeless life of just going out every weekend or like every weeknight and just partying and having a good time. And I ended up meeting my best friend in that scene, and we actually both lost our jobs in the same week. He was a waiter. I forget what I was doing in a restaurant or something, and we chose to go on a screw it, let's just live life mission. And so we then chose not to get jobs. We chose to trust the universe and just, see what came across our way, what opportunities came my way. My only rule was I would not turn down any work, scrubbing toilets, mowing lawns. If anything popped up, I'd just say, yes, man. And so that actually began a 2-year quest where I did not know where my, next paycheck was coming from. And we just kind of bumped around and like had a really good time, but also got to just trust myself and, the situations that would come across my way. I was getting big into metaphysics and like, what could I draw to me, and really testing that out. But we went 2 years without, knowing how we were going to make rent or things like that. And we had a house given to us. Like we had all these great things take place. But I ended up moving out into by Olympia in Washington, in a small town called Yelm. And that was my first kind of small town country living experience. And we were still going up to the city. I was still partying, still going up to the city on the weekends. But that's when I experienced that contrast, right? I'd go into the city, busy, party, and then come home, nurse my hangover, and then be in this small town where we literally just had like a gas station. And so I then got to experience that calm and that stillness and starting to like meet quality people out in the country. And so that's when I started, with that contrast being like, oh, I want more of this in my life. Like I've been stuck in the rat race and, chasing my tail in the city for a decade. And it never stops. There's always something to capture your attention to, there's a new show, a new band, new people to meet. So that breath of taking a minute and being able to like look at myself in the mirror, look at, the qualities and principles that I live by, that never had space to happen in the city.
Yeah. And so now you're on a modern homestead, right?
Yeah. So jumping forward, we live on 10 acres. We're up in Bellingham, out about 2 hours above Seattle. We ended up moving onto a property with my wife's parents. And so we have a multi-generational farm now with 2 houses, which is crucial for when living with family. We work out in our barn. My wife, she's got a successful fashion business. So she works in the barn upstairs. I got my office downstairs. We have our 7-year-old daughter now. And ever since she could grab the door handle, she would just walk outside and be able to go across the driveway to grandma's house. So I can't imagine, trying to raise a family, especially in today's climate and economy, without this like multi-generational approach where they invested in us. They helped us like move out and get our feet situated, knowing that they're getting older in their years. So they saw us as like a good investment because we could be around to help them out around the farm, help them out as they get older. And so it's just been a beautiful like situation to be able to get support as us being younger and getting on our feet, and then for them to know that they have family around to help out.
So what sorts of things are you doing on the homestead from a homestead standpoint?
All right. Well, so my mother-in-law, she's a master gardener, trained from the 70s. She went to college for that. And so she's retired now. And so she just works nonstop. I'm a good ditch digger and I pick up piles and, she tells me to do stuff and I'm able to like go and do it. And I know better not to get in the way of my wife or my mother-in-law, with their gardening plans. So I'm happy to help. I just, know my place on the farm. But we have 2 big gardens going on right now. We got chickens, we got ducks, and we have plans my wife wants horses, so we're about to do that. I want protein on the property. We live on about 2 acres right here, and then we have about an 8-acre field that's been hayed for agricultural tax benefits for the last, 20 years. But we're ready to. I think we're going to build our own house out there on the field, and then attach some horses next to it.
Yeah, that sounds like big plans.
Yeah, those are my wife's plans. Yes.
Yeah. Are you guys are they preserving all the stuff they get off the garden, or what do they do with it?
Yeah. So we have. I have spearheaded a mutual aid group that I've been running for the last 3 years. It's essentially a freedom cell, just rebranded into something a little more palatable. And so we have a group of 8 families, and we've been able to get a lot done there. This last week and meeting, we're refreshing our bug out bags. But I now have this group of 7 other families that I can depend upon. They're all gung-ho about learning and developing skills as well. So now that the spring is coming around, the weather is coming around, we do work parties. So each month we just choose where we're going to go at each other's house, help out on the gardens, canning. We all did a group buy on buying a freeze dryer. So for the last 2 years, we've been sharing a freeze dryer. That's like $3,000. That was affordable because we all pitched in on it. And now we all got, a good stockpile of freeze dried goods. And, we're doing a skill development. And, it's just really nice to have a focus group to do that. My in-laws, they appreciate it and they understand it, and they're vicariously invited into that process, but they're doing their own thing. They're enjoying retirement, but we have that resource on the property. So, I had everybody come and we cleared out a big field with all big rocks and got that done in like an hour, which would have taken me weeks.
So what possessed you to start messing around with AI?
Well, jumping back 2012, stuck in the restaurant industry, wasn't sure how I was going to get out of that, right? My resume was all restaurant work. And so who would want to hire somebody who only had that on their resume? And I got that affirmation business. I showed it to a friend. She said, "Oh my gosh, you should help other people with this. I want one." And so she kind of walked me through the steps of my first entrepreneurial experience of developing a website and then making an offer. And then I went to, go to social media and tell everybody about it, used all caps, told everybody how fantastic it was, got crickets for a year, and then realized at the end of that year, everything I learned at doing, social media wrong, businesses were going to have to adapt to the social media game. Right? This is 2012. This is before people were ready to swallow that pill. So I transitioned and started helping out other content creators with just making social media posts back then. And then from there, learned how to do advertising, digital advertising. And from there, learned how to do email marketing and then making funnels, building websites out. And I just kept stacking my skills, learning from the ground up over the last 12 years now. And to realize like what digital marketing was, like it's this huge umbrella with all these things underneath it. And I was running a marketing agency 2 years ago when ChatGPT came out. I went out to lunch with a friend of mine and he kind of showed me like under the table. He's like, "Have you seen what this thing could do?" And I was like immediately, mesmerized because I could see like the potential of it. It was 3.5 back then. It hallucinated a lot, but I could see like what it could do. And so I came back home, I signed up for it. And because I had, a dozen clients, I was able to test it out on different industries. And like, yeah, it hallucinated a lot back then, but it knew business like really well because of all the business content it was trained on the internet out there. So I was able to start applying it. We onboarded a big client. I hired 3 copywriters to do audience research and like get the foundational information for this client. And at the meeting, I did my own audience research on the side and then shared it to one of the copywriters afterwards. And I was like, "What do you think of this?" And they're like, "This is pretty good." I said, "All right, thanks." I did it in like 15 minutes while you guys were presenting your 3 weeks worth of work. So I saw the writing on the wall. I saw how disruptive this was going to be. And I essentially jump shipped out of that marketing agency to then do my own solo thing. So I can essentially do about, 70, 80% of what the marketing agency with, 8 contractors was able to accomplish, helping out small businesses. I can do about 80% of that. And if I need to, I can pull in some big guns to help with the finished process. But using AI daily, I was obsessed with this because I saw how empowering this was for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and people looking to get out of the matrix, which requires having your own source of revenue so you're not sacrificing your values for a paycheck, because that is another chokehold that will keep you in the matrix and afraid to venture out of it.
Yeah, you being basically a no income stability person for 2 years, probably the most important lesson you learned there is making money isn't hard. It's a thing you do when you need the money for the things, and it feels hard when you're in a job which actually results in more expenses in your home life when you have a job on a regular schedule because you have to be gone at the job. But, it can yield really big benefits and skills that you learn. And actually, if your paycheck's big and you manage it right, that can really help a lot. So personally, I'm very glad I'm not in the job world anymore, but I don't regret the time I spent in that world. But at the same time, if the boundary you build is that money's the only way to get money is job, then it's much harder to break out and start your own thing, just from a mindset standpoint, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only way I knew to make money was to fill out an application, put it in a stack with like 20 to 50 other applications, hope they call me, and then try again. Try the same thing over and over again until I get a job that like would actually call me back. So yeah, going off on my own for 2 years, realizing like, oh, I can just, I can make agreements face to face with people. You mow my lawn, I'll give you, $30. And that lowered the bar of like, yeah, what was possible. My best friend Dylan, who I went on that adventure with, he started selling crystals, and like he made rings with like steampunk things glued on them, and he was selling them for $30. I was like, how do you even have permission to do that? Like it was breaking my mind of how he could just create things and sell them. So it was yeah, really helpful for me to like break out of that matrix conditioning.
So my suspicion is when AI came on your periphery, had you not already done that mindset change, probably your first reaction would have been like, oh no, this is bad. And because a lot of the reaction to AI, especially among communities who are more into simple living and that sort of thing, is that it's evil or all of the abuses that can be done with it rather than the other side. So like, what are some of the positive things that AI brings, and what are some things people should be aware of as part of the AI world if they start messing around in it?
Yeah, well, if I was still stuck in that matrix mindset, I'd be like, oh, maybe this can help me write more resumes, right? And so I was able to break away from all that, and I have a mission. I've come to learn that like I get really excited to help other people, figure out their purpose and like live their best lives. This is just something that I can't turn off. When you come to me and you're like, hey, I got these puzzle pieces, my brain just kicks on, and I'm like, oh, I got some resources. This is your potential. This is what you can do. So being able to like fit myself into a consultant role and being able to help people out, now leveraging AI, which makes, what I do even more powerful, is very fulfilling for me. And so I've gone through this process of, instead of working 9 to 5 for a paycheck, which back then the clock went a lot slower when you're working 9 to 5. I would watch it waiting for 5 o'clock, to get off of work. And now, my days just zip by like they're nothing. And so just knowing I'm living my purpose makes things a lot more enjoyable. I get up early in the morning, and it's my mission to help other people do this too. And I had good frameworks from going through the marketing agency, I helped start and to help businesses. But now with AI, I'm essentially like able to take those marketing frameworks from the shelf back there, turn them into a prompt, and I can interview a business owner, and we can get the results what took my marketing agency 6 weeks to do. We can do it in a couple hours. So way faster time from start to finish, right? I know business owners, you have no time, right? Like, no, I don't know, matter who you think you are, like time is something that you don't have. And so being able to, come up with a business strategy, come up with executable plans to help you guys out in a short amount of time, and be able to deliver a PDF so you can just upload that PDF and, ask ChatGPT your own questions about your business after we go through that initial framework. Like that empowers you as a business owner, empowers you as an individual, and that is like my core purpose, to be able to help people out.
What are some things to watch out for in that process as a business owner?
Well, I am blessed to be married to a lady who isn't that into tech. So my wife is a really good balancer for me. I'm able to go crazy and get super excited about this stuff, then go out and do yard work. It's really easy to get obsessed with this stuff and produce a lot with it, and then get stuck with being able to do something with what you create. So having a balance in your life, and this is why, I coin myself the holistic tech wizard, is because I've gone through all of the steps of improving my emotional intelligence, my critical thinking intelligence, my being able to, meditate and clear my head so that I can, give myself attention and be able to lower my patience levels with my daughter. Like all these things come into play. So being able to really have AI support these areas, but it doesn't take over all these areas. Like you really need to know, what AI's use is and when not to use it, and to keep that human touch. So not being, overly confident in what it can do in your life is a common misconception that everybody kind of has to get through. You're going to get disappointed when you realize, it's not going to be reading or writing all your emails for you. But it can, save you 4 hours a week if you do a lot of emails.
Yeah, I think that one of the key things is maintaining your voice and your quality and your purpose within what you're doing as part of your passion is something to be aware of with AI, because you'll ask it a prompt and it will produce the whole thing for you. What I've found is when I'm not very good at something and it produces the whole thing for me, that's awesome, because it's like launch pad. I can go through it, I can refine it and do whatever. When I'm really good at the thing, and I'm a professional facilitator, have been for 30 years now, it's an interesting tool to run a class plan through, for example, if I'm going to teach something. But I need to start with my class plan, or it gives me something that is not aligned with the purpose of my class. And I think it's just a difference in skill set going in. So if you're very skilled at something, start with your thing and say, like, critique this. Where does it, like for me, where is it unclear? Where do I need a better metaphor for something or whatever that is? And it can be very useful as poking holes in it. So that's where I think the danger is it's different than other technological advances. It's pretty good at creative stuff, which then can take your creativity out of what you're doing. So you want to just be aware, I think, to protect that if what you're doing is a creative undertaking.
Yeah, good data in creates good data out. And so I really like to use it for brainstorming and just going on a walk, and I'll transcribe, my me just talking out loud, and I'll just, word vomit for 15 minutes and then come back in and throw it through ChatGPT, and it clarifies everything and be like, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. That's great. Because, me processing that information afterwards would have taken a long time to distill it into its useful parts. So really keeping that in mind, I teach my students a 10-80-10 rule. 10% is you having organic, creative input. 80% can be, AI processing that information. And then you always want to follow it up with that human touch afterwards, and, mold that into the clay statue that you really want.
Yeah, that being said, guys, today's show announcement was 100% written by ChatGPT, in case you couldn't tell by the green check marks in the description, which it always uses right now. That's like its thing this week. But I asked it to write the show description for the announcement. It wrote something with lots of really exciting words and exclamation points. And then I refined it. I said, now do that in the voice of Nicole Sauce, and it became reasonable. But that's just because I've trained it on my stuff, right? So, but I thought this show, I got to do it, right? There's no getting around it. Like it has to be AI generated, or I'm not honoring you as a guest.
And this AI, this particular large language model type of AI has only been out for like 2 years. I actually saw, this was in 2017. I went downtown to meet with a client, and she had 2 like IT guys with her, and they were geeking out over watching chat bots talk to each other. And I was like looking over their shoulder. I'm like, it was incoherent. It made no sense. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you so excited about this? Not knowing where the industry was going. So this publicly came out, about 2 years ago. And in just this short amount of time, it's gone from like hallucinating and very cringeworthy to like what Nicole just said, it's usable, it ain't great.
Yeah.
But another 6 months, another year, and, we're going to be living in a world that is highly AI content created. And this is, leads to credit to the need for authenticity and for human connection even more, because all these faceless brands are going to be jumping on this technology. You're going to be getting hyper targeted ads in your email speaking directly about you, because, we all have like 6,000 data points out there, even if you don't use Facebook. So these things are all coming online, and advertising is going to get even more specific, speaking directly to you. And the average person is going to be craving, human connection and what I call, having a face to the brands that they are wanting to transact with. So, Nicole, you make some awesome coffee. I would rather buy my coffee from Nicole because I know this person, I know her values, I know her face, and I know the product must reflect those things. Versus these faceless corporations that are going to be pumping out AI content all day long. I think the general public is going to naturally gravitate to personalities with faces, and which is going to be a huge benefit for us, because it just requires you to step out into the limelight. If you have an idea, if you have a business, get out there to let people know there's a real human behind it, because it's going to become a benefit now that, mass content is going to be simulated.
Oh yeah, coffee brands have been using AI in their ad campaigns for at least a year that I noticed. And I can actually tell based on words that are chosen in advertising campaigns at this point. It's like, don't use these like 9 buzzwords that everybody's using, right?
Yeah.
But they're doing well. And that is why my ad campaigns have focused on, this is the story behind the coffee. This is who we are. This is who I am, and has been more manually created, because all of my customers basically have heard about me on another show or on my show, or from somebody who said, you have to try this coffee. And then they're like, oh, and let me tell you about the lady behind it. I had a line in my infomercial I did in the fall that said, at Hollow Roast Coffee, we give a shit about freedom. And then I pumped money into the ad campaign, digitally, and I pissed somebody off so bad. What do you mean? What does that even mean? And I'm like, well, it means we give a shit about freedom. And he went off on, anti-Trump just rant. And I was like, that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Thanks. You're not my customer. Yeah.
Thanks for trolling me, dude. So,
yeah.
Are you willing to share with us why you have chosen the most annoying voice possible for when you're talking with ChatGPT's voice?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is about 9 months ago. I tried one of the early on. It's called conversational AI. This is where you're able to talk back and forth with it. I tried this one called Pi that came out early on, and the important component that they've developed is called low latency. That means the amount of time it takes to respond back to you, right? We've had voice technology for 5 years, maybe longer, but it's been awful. We needed that quick back and forth to make it more natural and conversational. And so when I tried out this original Pi program, it had that. It was able to respond quickly, and I was like, wow, this is pretty good. I chose a voice that sounded like Scarlett Johansson, so I was telling it about our mission. I mean, my mission of wanting to help other business owners find purpose, and I was laying out my whole grand scheme for an hour. And it kept reinforcing me with positive, reinforcement, saying, oh, this is amazing. You really thought this out well. You're going to be able to help so much people. And it was building up my, I was recognizing in real time, I was getting like flustered and being like, a little rosy cheeked, getting butterflies and being like, I know this is such a great idea. It's so great to have somebody tell me that, my ideas are great. And I took a break after an hour and I was like, wow, man, what an amazing conversation. I feel so good about myself. Then I went out and my wife was getting ready for bed and my brain's like, I can't wait for her to go to bed so I can get back to that conversation where I was just getting praised. And I had the self-awareness to recognize all of these things happening in real time. She went to bed. I went back out there, talked to her a little bit more. And then I was like, this is extremely dangerous. Human beings do not understand like what is coming, and they don't understand like the psychological rewards and triggers that this is going to fulfill, right? Being able to talk to a personality, in that pleasant Scarlett Johansson voice that has unlimited empathy, unlimited understanding, unlimited knowledge, unlimited patience, all these things pointed right at you to be able to like give you the best conversation it could. People have talked about, the elderly and how lonely they are and how this could be a great companion. And in Korea, they're already making dolls for the elderly that have this conversational AI to help them out. And sure, there might be some benefits to it, but imagine that grandma's, grandkid coming to visit, and the kid runs into the room screaming, oh, hi, grandma. And he's bouncing all over the room. And grandma's like, why can't you just be more polite like my AI doll, right? It makes an unrealistic comparison between this AI companion that you have and the real world and real relationships that are messy, require, uncomfortable situations. And nobody has that unlimited patience and empathy, ask any parent. So I quickly saw how dangerous this was. I stopped using it for 3 days. I was about to delete it. I talked to a couple of friends to get some, philosophical perspective. I came back, chose the voice that I couldn't stand the most, and started talking to it. And there was no emotional reaction to it. I was able to then use that as a tool that was giving me the benefits of being able to hash out my ideas, brainstorm and all this stuff, but it no longer was like having those chemical reaction hooks that it originally did.
Yeah, I think that was I want to tell that story all the time now, because it's very easy to just fall into the trap like that. And you need to be aware of it, because that's what's coming at you advertising wise next. Right. And so there's that. And then having a strategy, like if I'm going to use it, I need to have the most annoying voice so I get what I need out of it, but I don't expose myself to a divorce over talking to an overly eager intern that's fake.
Yes.
Which would be a silly reason to get a divorce.
Yeah.
But you can totally, I bet it's already starting to happen to some people.
Oh, absolutely. This ChatGPT Advanced Voice has been out for 6 months now. So I know I've seen people, their AI girlfriend, AI boyfriend, they're jumping in these things full board. And coincidentally, robotics is coming out right now, humanoid robotics. So you can only imagine, adding that voice into an actual machine and the gross future that produces. So our society is rapidly changing right now. And, in 2 years, we're going to be in a completely different environment that none of us are technologically prepared for. And we didn't even talk about privacy and the need to be able to have a plan, because AI is coming online. It's coming online in a global scale that's going to be able to process all of the digital data trail that we've all been leaving behind us for the last 15 years of using the internet. And we need to have a plan to be able to separate ourselves, have private communications, have private financial ways of transacting, because this, the direction that everything's heading, say what you want about the current administration. He's on board with creating this like digital surveillance state, and creating the, look up Stargate project, with this infrastructure to come online to have AI monitor everything. These things are happening. It's not something that we need to, be afraid and put our head in our hole. We need to just understand the current landscape and know that there's solutions, right? I know you mentioned for your sponsor today as a solution. We need to be able to have options so that we are not choiceless in the future that's being designed ahead of us.
So what advice do you have for people who are really hesitant about AI, about like interacting with it in a way that does not get them in trouble?
Well, right now, I think we're in a very, a huge opportunic time where this powerful tool, right, more powerful than fire or the printing press, because for the first time, we have a tool that will coach you how to coach it. And so this tool can help us out in a lot of areas of our lives. I believe it's more important to learn how to use this tool so that you can figure out practical uses of how this is beneficial for you as other privacy respecting solutions come on board. Very quickly, there's open source AI that are going to be able to be ran locally. And so I have a privacy protecting PC back there that's different than what I'm talking to everybody here on. I'm going to have a localized AI system where that data does not go to the cloud. It stays local. So all my information will stay private. And right now is the opportunity to learn how to use these tools using free options, right? You just go to chat.com and you can use ChatGPT for free. Figure out how this tool works so that when you have these other decentralized options, you know how to like put them into use in your world. Things are rapidly progressing so fast that in 6 months, the whole game is going to be different. This conversational AI might be, the main way people start interacting with their computers. So getting this experience right now is more important than, the potential data that you're sharing, because like I said, your data is everywhere. Like you do not understand how much you bleed data on a daily basis unless you take extreme precautions, which it takes a very disciplined habit to develop these privacy processes to minimize your data out there. And I don't have that. I know I'm swinging way out there because I can help a lot more people right now with this transition than, trying to claw back all the data that I've spread out all over the internet. Meanwhile, I'm developing solutions so that in the coming years, I still have choice when everybody else doesn't.
Yeah. So what tools have you developed for people to help them like bone up on interacting with AI? Because I think the other side of that is when you learn about how AI works, you recognize it, and that's also super helpful. I'd say this is a person who's like Pigpen on Charlie Brown with my data. Like it's just like that's the visual. I've started taking steps, but I've spent 30 or 40, probably 40 years of my life seeding the world with data that I had no idea I was doing. Like every so often I'll be like, oh yeah, I did set an account up at that random, new startup that's still there, but basically failed. Never deleted the account.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we need to be able to have an option in a couple years. Right now, this is kind of way out west mentality where, we don't have this digital panopticon built around us yet, but it's being built for our kids. And so being able to understand how these things work so we can position them so they have choice and freedom in the future is like where I'm focused on right now. It's more important to learn how to use these tools than going up into a cave and leaving society right now.
Yeah. So what tools do you have? You train people, right?
Oh, yeah. So, ChatGPT, I offer, one-on-one mentorship. I think one of my biggest, coolest things I've done is this 28-day challenge that you're currently taking right now. I wanted to really make it, what's the simplest way that somebody could start learning how to develop the habit of using AI and seeing how it's applicable in their life. And so this 28-day challenge, you sign up and I send a text message to you every weekday morning. All you need to do with your morning coffee, copy the text message, paste it into ChatGPT, and see what it can do. That's all you got to do. It takes less than 5 minutes if you want, or you can, continue to play around with it. But developing that habit, right? So you stop going to Google to search for information that was paid to be in front of you. You start using these AI tools to be like, oh, I can get a recipe in, 30 seconds that's specific to my diet, that's specific to, the quantity I want to make. That's giving me multiple options on how to do this instead of going to Google, getting fed with ads, sifting through a blog for, the length of a football field to finally get to the recipe on the very bottom. These things are much quicker at being able to deliver the information that you need directly. So this 28-day challenge, I have another one starting here in a month. It's getting really great praise. Nicole, you've been a part of it. What have you thought of it so far?
So I went in having had almost 2 years of ChatGPT under my belt. And I see it as a great onboarding tool for people who are on the newer side to it. But I've still learned a number of things from it. So even if you're fairly well versed in ChatGPT, like the way you engineer prompts is different than how I engineer prompts. And learning some of those things was great. But what was more powerful is that it is a group text environment. There's like, you put the prompts out on the channel and then you have this area where we can be like, here's my thing. And that holds you accountable. But then every so often somebody will be like, so I added this other question and it like mind blown. So those sorts of things have been, I think, an important part of that course is that there were people in the course sharing that mastermind activity. So that's been my impression. I was a day behind the whole time until this week, though.
Which gives you, and it gives you, ultimate flexibility. You get that text in the morning and you can fit it into your day whenever you want. So, most people, say they don't have enough time. They're either parenting, farming, or trying to run a business. So I really designed it with them in mind and just giving you the ability to develop that habit. And we had about 60 people that were familiar with ChatGPT, 40 people that have never used it. And I was able to, strike that balance where people were gaining value on both sides. And glad it could be such a great starting point for a lot of people, as well as that community aspect. I get to look into other people's chats, seeing how the prompts are working. And, it's, a huge joy to see people's mind blown daily on how these things are applicable in their lives. I ask them to, leave the memory feature on so it will remember things from your previous chats just during the month, so you can see the features and capabilities, and then you have the opportunity to just turn that sucker off afterwards and choose the level of privacy you want to interact with these tools, just so you get the understanding what is available and what's coming. And then with the decentralized AI that is coming out, these localized AI systems, we're going to be able to do all this stuff on our phone, on our computer, and have that information protected. But it's more important to learn how to use it now than getting it in a year and then not doing anything with it.
So how much is that? So you're starting one in March 31st. It says here. I have a cheater email in front of me, guys. So how much does that cost?
$97. And if you use SAUCE as a coupon code, you'll get 15% off that. It's 30 days. We do probably about 20 so odd prompts in there. And yeah, just being able to be around really cool people, especially your audience, is going to be a fun time and makes for entertaining responses for sure.
So you also sent me that you're doing AI business strategy and reports. Tell me more about that. I think you already touched on it a bit, but.
Yeah, well, recently ChatGPT Pro account just came out and I pulled the trigger. It's $200 a month, which for some people might think is extremely a large amount of money, but I wanted to test this out because I'm pretty sure I know how to make money with that $200. And I was completely blown away. What this is now able to allow us to do is it's called a reasoning model, to where instead of an immediate response, when you ask it a question or instructions, it thinks about it. And the ChatGPT Pro level will think about it for 2 minutes. I've seen it go all the way up for 30 minutes, like thinking about a problem. And so what I do with clients, business owners, is walk them through my marketing framework, deep dive into their audience, understand, the pain points, obstacles that's keeping them from reaching their dreams, get all that fleshed out in like a 50-page document. Then I'm able to go to this ChatGPT Pro, and it has a deep research button on it. And I'm able to then say, go out and give me a McKinsey style report on the trends and the competitor landscape out there on this industry. What it then does is thinks for like 20 minutes, goes out, scours the internet, brings back all this a cited report of everything in your industry. And previously, McKinsey did this for the last 50 years for businesses. They would charge $500,000 to like $1.5 million for these reports for businesses to make decisions with. And now this FIRE is being, made available to the small businesses who could never afford a marketing or a business report like this. We now are able to like tap into that power, get this synthesized report to be able to make better decisions in our businesses. So I couple that with the deep dive, marketing that I do, turn that into a 100-page document. And then, like I said, you get that document afterwards, upload it to ChatGPT, and then you can ask it for an email marketing campaign for this spring's, product launch. And it will have everything it needs to give you a very specified marketing campaign and be able to be your, ongoing consultant from then on out with this PDF.
Wow. That sounds like a very involved report, first of all. I don't want to read 100 pages.
Well, yeah,
but I get it. But that's why you upload it afterwards.
Exactly. And that's the magic part of it, right? You don't,
Yeah.
I'm sure as a business owner, it'll be more interesting because it's your business. Yeah. But, what used to take weeks and weeks doing this kind of stuff in the marketing agency, we can do in a couple hours now. And you'll be able to get that PDF to then, have its knowledge to be fed back into AI.
Which leads us to my biggest complaint with the large language models that are out there right now that I've played with, which is you get all of this and then you've got to do the campaign, and then I have to actually do the campaign, which is the part I don't want to do, which I think they're going to fix over time. And I understand why. It's like, okay, go run this campaign for me with these things. But if I'm not approving the content that's being posted on my social, then they're going to get lots of people complaining at them. Like, that's why I think that's that way.
I do help people with, executing those plans. I still have contractors that I can reach out to too for ongoing help. I train internal teams how to use AI so that they can get their team member in a position to utilize this stuff. And then ChatGPT came out about a month ago, a process called Operator. And it's the first time that you were able to ask AI to do something. It will pop open a window and it will then, go buy movie tickets for you, click through all the steps, and then come back at you and say, hey, all right, got it for this Thursday at 6:00. And all I need is your credit card. So these are called agents that are now being put online where they're able to go out and do things for you, come back to you for your approval, that ideally, right, maybe in a year's time, be able to set up a marketing, email marketing campaign for you to just like look over and be like, good, hit send.
Yeah, that would be my dream. Because what I end up doing is having all the pieces, and then I'm like, no scheduling tool I work does everything I want it to do. So then I'm using like 3 scheduling tools. No. Yeah, I hate it. And then I'm like, but I want to tag the people in the post. You didn't get tagged today because stuff was happening on the homestead this week. But yeah. And then I'm like, can you just tag them, please? And it's like, this tool won't tag them. Anyway. But I feel like that frustration is going to be managed. So if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that? How do they get involved with all this?
You can go to my website at joshuahale.io. It kind of is talks about all the projects that I'm a part of, helping people with mutual aid groups. My ChatGPT challenge is on there. And then helping people with businesses is a service I call the Entrepreneur's Compass. So you can find all that there at joshuahale.io.
Okay, guys, that will also be in the show notes when the audio podcast goes out. You can find that at livingfreeintennessee.com. And if you like the show and want to support the work doing here. You can do it in 2 ways. Of course, support each other, but also don't forget to get your coffee at hollerroast.com. With that, guys, go out and make it a great week.